So this video is a bit late now. However, I did still want to cover it as I believe this topic to still be relevant. We will be analyzing the Jimmy Kimmel situation that occurred after the Charlie Kirk assassination. We will be examining whether or not he did in fact lie. I will take what I believe to be the strongest arguments from both sides of this issue. And so let's begin now with an examination of what was actually said, because I see this misquoted so fucking often still to this day. So what was said was, we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. So when I read this, I interpret it as Kimmel criticizing the MAGA group for speculating wildly about the shooter's identity without evidence, while deliberately avoiding the possibility that the shooter could be affiliated with their own side. The key phrase here, anything other than one of them. This suggests that they're desperate to pin it on outsiders, groups like trans, Marxists, leftists, billionaires, LGBTQ groups, Antifa, the deep state, the usual suspects, right? So to visualize this, I went ahead and created this little diagram. Basically, the incident occurs, Charlie Kirk shot, Utah Valley University, shooter's identity is unknown, immediate speculation, MAGA makes desperate attempts to blame, the usual suspects here, basically any other group than MAGA. I want to score political points on social media, being the one to correctly predict which group it's going to be from. And then, of course, later we get the truth revealed that it was Tyler Robinson. Appears to be, at this point, left affiliated. So this kind of behavior is definitely not unique to one side. It's common in all these shootings. The riot will speculate it's a trans person, Antifa, illegal immigrant, black person, radical leftist, something along those lines. And the left might assume it's a straight white male incel type of character, a groiper, some hardcore MAGA lunatic or whatever. I collected a few tweets scraped from Twitter in the aftermath. You had guys like the Hodge twins, 3.4 million followers. This isn't just a lone wolf crazy guy that shot Charlie Kirk. This is who the woke commie leftists are. They are terrorists and want you and your family dead. I think this was a professional hit. This is from the Wall Street Mav, 1.7 million. This wasn't some trans mental illness. My guess is Charlie Kirk became too effective. It's moving the needle too much, swaying young people to understand that leftist ideas are ridiculous. The left had to eliminate him and they will kill others. Like Charlie, who become too effective, swaying voters toward the right. There's lots of other ones, 100% chance it was trans, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you always see these types of speculations, right? And this is just this idea of social media speculating without any evidence. And so this is how I interpreted it. And this is factually correct, right? There's no lie here. This is objectively what happened. So I was trying to understand kind of the MAGA side of it. And so I came up with this argument. I'm calling it the Martian counter argument. And I came up with this because I was trying to figure out, like, how can, like, all of these, like, millions of MAGA people unanimously believe this when, just from, like, a strict factual evaluation of like, the parsing of the text, it seems to be factually correct, as we just kind of went over, right? And so I came up with this idea of the Martian test. And essentially, what we're doing is doing a substitution here to check for absurdity. So the original paraphrase thing here we're going to do is desperately trying to characterize as anything other than MAGA, and the substitution desperately trying to characterize as anything other than a Martian. So, when you hear this, like the Martians are desperately trying to characterize the shooter as anything other than a Martian, this has an implication of plausibility. It seems like it should at least be plausible that the guy could be a Martian, right? So the reason why the right, the MAGA people think this is a lie is because they don't think it's plausible that he could be MAGA. So to formalize this into like an actual syllogism, premise one would be, if a group is desperately trying to characterize someone as anything other than X, it implies X is a plausible affiliation. Otherwise, no desperation is needed. Premise two, Tyler Robinson was left affiliated with no evidence of MAGA ties as per the investigations. Conclusion, it was not plausible for Robinson to be MAGA. So Kimmel's framing embeds a misleading implication. So the counter argument to this would be, perhaps it's not so implausible though, because now you have these huge influencers like Candace Owens and Ian Carroll, who are strongly suggesting that perhaps this could have been an inside job with Turning Point because because Charlie was about to turn on Israel and they were going to lose all kinds of donor money. I don't know if they've outright said it yet, but they are very strongly implying it. And also other conspiracy theories out there are related to it being like Israel or something like that. There's a lot. And Candace also had one for a while about a bee cult. So these arguments are out there. So perhaps the bee cult's just a funny, unrelated thing. But I mean, it was related. It was one of her theories. But now she's moved in the Turning Point USA kind of direction. And so so perhaps maybe it's not as implausible as people in MAGA originally thought. That's my point of bringing this up. So there are some potential weaknesses, some other potential weaknesses. For instance, you could say that the MAGA critique on Kimmel could involve a straw man fallacy by overstating Kimmel's wording as a straightforward claim, like an objective claim, right, that the shooter was MAGA affiliated, rather than recognizing it as a satirical poke at their speculative hypocrisy. This, mirrors common political tactics like misrepresenting an opponent's nuanced position on immigration as wanting open borders in order to more easily refute it. At its heart, this stems from a logical fallacy called equivocation, where a word or concept is used in two different senses within the same argument, leading to confusion. So, for instance, the term statement or Kimmel's remarks gets shifted between a satirical exaggeration, a comedic device not meant to be taken literally, and factual assertion, right? A claim intended to convey objective truth. So defenders often argue that Kimmel's phrasing, something like implying the shooter was one of them, MAGA aligned, was just a hyperbolic satire in a late night comedy routine and not a serious claim. This positions it as a harmless entertainment, exempt from strict factual scrutiny. However, other critics will counter that In political discourse, especially from influential figures, such remarks can function as de facto assertions, influencing public perception regardless of the comedic wrapper. In Kimmel's case, this could blur whether his remarks were pure humor or implied truth, especially given his own claims that critics maliciously mischaracterized them by breaking it down. So by breaking it down with syllogisms, like we're about to show, we can sidestep these issues and recognize the embedded implications as real and not proof of any kind of like deliberate deceit. So let's examine our next point here. Does this constitute a lie? Well, first we must define what a lie is, right? To lie is to make a believed false statement to another person with the intention that the other person believe that statement to be true. This is from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Now, a lie requires three different elements. The element of falsity, the statement must be factually untrue. A lie requires that what is said does not correspond to reality, the correspondence theory of truth. There must be an element of intent. A speaker must know the truth and deliberately choose to mislead. Honest mistakes or negligence do not count. And there must be a direct assertion. It must be presented as fact, not opinion, hypothesis, or satire. The statement must claim to be true reality. So, formalizing this as a syllogism, we can say premise one, a statement is not a lie if it lacks deliberate intent to deceive or is presented as opinion/satire rather than direct facts. As per the Stanford definition, Kimmel's phrasing relies on hyperbolic, subjective language, things like desperately trying, new lows, and this occurs in a comedy routine with no evidence that he knowingly presented false information as objective truth. Our conclusion, therefore, the statement does not meet the criteria for a lie, though it may still be misleading due to implications. To elaborate a bit, the we hit some new lows part of the quote and the desperately trying, these frame the entire claim as subjective opinion and not a statement of objective facts. Because, like, for instance, we hit some new lows, that's a subjective value judgment, and desperately trying is a subjective characterization of behavior/motivation. So, I guess in conclusion, we can say that critics argue that Kimmel ignored contradictory evidence. The shooter's left-leaning affiliations were already publicly known by the airtime of this broadcast. This amounts to cherry-picking key facts to fit his narrative. However, since the statement qualifies as opinion or satire rather than objective reporting, it isn't held to the same standards of comprehensive balance. Ultimately, while fringe conspiracy theories render MAGA as, potentially being plausible, it's at least debatable, right? With the whole Candace Owens, all that BS, and other conspiracies. There's an absence of any concrete evidence pointing in that direction. And so the implication that's there, it does in fact remain misleading. However, it falls short of constituting a lie according to our rigorous philosophical definition. So I do not believe that Jimmy Kimmel lied. His statement is factually grounded in speculation patterns that we see on social media all the time. with any misleadingness stemming from satire and not an intent to deceive. At least we have no evidence of an attempt to deceive. So that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll have many more videos coming soon. Please do like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know if you think he lied, what your opinions are of the video. And yeah, have a good day.